The tragic story of Allison Gregory, a woman known for her kindness and positive energy, took a horrifying turn when her marriage to Brandon Gregory, a man full of lies and deception, ended in violence. Her story, filled with love for her family and dedication to her career, was marred by a brutal murder that shocked those closest to her. Allison Gregory was a woman who radiated positivity and joy, much like her favorite flower, the sunflower. She was known for always turning toward the light and inspiring others to do the same. At 41 years old, Allison was a devoted mother to two daughters, ages 20 and 14, and a Navy veteran who had dedicated her life to helping others as a surgical technician at Banner Del Webb Medical Center in Sun City, West Arizona. The details of how Allison first met Brandon Gregory remain largely unknown, though what we do know paints a picture of a relationship that would ultimately end in tragedy. Brandon, who was 56 years old at the time of this incident, had lived a life that those close to him would later describe as built on lies and deception. One of his former friends, who had remained close to him for over 15 years, would later express shock at the news, stating that Brandon had lived with his family as a roommate for many years before they lost touch in 2015. Allison couldn't help but see the good in people, a trait that would serve her well in her career as a surgical technician, but may have also made her vulnerable to those who would take advantage of her kind nature. Her sister, Autumn Dobbins, would later describe Allison as beautiful, fun, witty, and someone who always had snarky things to say in the most endearing way possible. This vibrant personality made her beloved by both her family and her colleagues. At the hospital where she worked, Allison had moved to Arizona's Valley area approximately 12 years prior to this incident, seeking to be closer to her family. She remained steadfast in her belief that proximity to loved ones was important, and she cherished the relationships she had built with her siblings and parents. Her mother, Jan McCumbers, would frequently visit and offer support, demonstrating the close-knit nature of their family unit. The family had embraced Allison's move to Arizona, and she had successfully established herself both professionally and personally in the community. Those who knew Allison described her as someone who had found her calling in the medical field. She was the light of the O. She always was a positive person. She never had anything negative to say about anybody, said Gina Sanchez, one of Allison's co-workers at Banner Del Webb Medical Center. Another colleague, Kathy Roberts, emphasized how integral Allison had become to their workplace community. Allie was an intricate part of our lives, and she supported so many people. It was evident to everyone that Allison took her role as a surgical technician seriously. Having served in the Navy, she understood the importance of precision, dedication, and service to others. These values transferred seamlessly into her civilian career, where she worked alongside surgeons and medical staff to ensure patient care remained at the highest standard. Her colleagues trusted her implicitly, and patients found comfort in her presence during what were often their most vulnerable moments. Beyond her professional life, Allison was passionate about health and wellness, finding joy in hiking, running, and especially taking walks with her dog, Willow. She enjoyed cooking nutritious meals for her family and staying active at the gym. These activities reflected her commitment to maintaining a healthy lifestyle and creating positive experiences for those around her, particularly her two daughters. The scene was becoming increasingly tense within the Gregory household as their marriage began to deteriorate. Court documents would later reveal that by January 2025, Brandon Gregory himself had filed the initial paperwork for their divorce, a fact that would seem inconsistent with the narrative that would later emerge. About their relationship dynamics, the divorce proceedings indicated that Allison would receive 100% custody of her 14-year-old daughter, while Brandon would be responsible for paying child support. With a heavy heart, Allison had begun the process of trying to separate her life from Brandon's, though they continued to live together in their surprise home near the Loop 303 and Peoria Avenue during the proceedings. The couple had also agreed to sell their home in Surprise, with the closing scheduled for May 19, 2025, a date that would prove to be tragically significant. As the divorce proceedings continued, disturbing patterns began to emerge. According to statements made by Allison's family members during later court proceedings, Brandon had been lying and manipulating his way back into Allison's life repeatedly. Her brother would later tell the court he lied and manipulated his way back into her life. She uncovered more lies, lie after lie. The guy's entire life has been a lie. He's a manipulator and a murderer. Lauren couldn't help but notice the warning signs that were becoming apparent to those around Allison. Her family members would later describe how she had been struggling to separate from Brandon for the past year, encountering resistance and manipulation at every turn. The family had grown increasingly concerned about Allison's safety and well-being as the divorce process continued. Her unease grew as she attempted to navigate the complexities of divorce while still living under the same roof as Brandon. Court documents would later reveal that Allison had been texting a boyfriend during this period, suggesting that she was trying to move forward with her life and find happiness beyond her marriage to Brandon. These text messages would become crucial evidence in understanding the timeline of events, particularly when they stopped abruptly around 11:30 a.m. on May 14, 2025. The morning of May 14, 2025 began what seemed like an ordinary day for Allison Gregory. She had made plans to pick up her mother from the airport as Jan McCumbers had flown in, specifically to help her daughter move out of the home she shared with Brandon. This act of maternal support would prove to be crucial in the timeline of events, as it would be Jan's failure to hear from her daughter that would first alert authorities to the tragedy that had unfolded. According to court documents, Allison had been texting her boyfriend that morning, expressing concerns that Brandon was acting strange. These communications painted a picture of a woman who was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with her estranged husband's behavior. The texts provided a real-time account of her growing unease, and their sudden cessation around 11:30 a.m. would later prove to be a critical piece of evidence in establishing the timeline of the crime. Brandon would later claim that their argument began when Allison asked him to leave the house, which was in the process of being sold as part of their divorce settlement. According to his account, their disagreement escalated when Allison allegedly kicked him in the groin area while holding a wooden baseball bat. He claimed that he wrestled the bat away from her, at which point she began running around the house screaming. The scene was gruesome beyond what even experienced law enforcement officers had prepared themselves for. Brandon admitted to hitting Allison several times with the wooden bat. Court paperwork states after the brutal attack, he claimed that he administered CPR to Allison as she lay on the floor, but she had stopped breathing. The callous nature of his subsequent actions revealed a calculated attempt to cover up the crime. According to Brandon's confession, he wrapped Allison's body in carpet padding and placed her inside their Subaru Ascent. He then proceeded to clean up the blood that had spattered on the walls throughout the house, placing the cleaning supplies inside the vehicle with his wife's body. The methodical nature of this cleanup suggested a clear understanding of what he had done and a deliberate attempt to conceal the evidence. The elaborate cover-up continued as Brandon drove his Ram 500 pickup truck to a parking lot near Prasada Parkway and Wad Road, approximately 2 miles from their home. From there, he used a rideshare service to return to his residence, where he retrieved the Subaru containing his wife's body. This careful orchestration of his movements demonstrated a level of planning and calculation that would later be used to argue against any claims of temporary insanity or diminished capacity. During his journey away from Surprise, Brandon stopped at a gas station in Wixenberg, where he disposed of Allison's cell phone and Apple Watch in a trash can. This action effectively cut off any possibility of her being located through electronic means and further demonstrated his awareness of the need to eliminate evidence. The disposal of her personal items also served to symbolically erase her identity and presence. Upon arriving at the remote Burra Creek campground in Wickiup, Arizona, Brandon completed his attempt to destroy evidence by throwing the baseball bat used in the attack into an open field. The weapon has never been recovered by authorities despite extensive searches of the area. The choice of this remote location, more than 100 miles from Surprise, suggested a deliberate attempt to distance himself from the crime scene and potentially dispose of his wife's body in an area where it might never be found. Filled with shock and horror, Jan McCumbers waited at the airport for her daughter, who never arrived. Allison was known for her reliability and would never simply fail to show up for such an important occasion without explanation. When repeated, Attempts to contact Allison by phone went unanswered. Jan's concern turned to panic. She had traveled to Arizona specifically to help her daughter transition out of what had become a difficult and potentially dangerous living situation. It was evident to everyone who knew Allison that she would never voluntarily disappear or fail to communicate with her family. Her devotion to her daughters and her close relationship with her mother made such behavior completely out of character. As the hours passed without word from Allison, family members made the decision to contact the Surprise Police Department to report her missing. The scene was immediately concerning when officers arrived at the Gregory home on the evening of May 14, 2025. Upon entering the residence, they observed what they described as signs that a physical struggle could have taken place. The house bore evidence of violence, including a small drop of blood discovered in the hallway. Despite Brandon's attempts to clean up the crime scene, traces of the violent encounter remained visible to the trained eyes of law enforcement. Officers also noted that both Allison and Brandon were absent from the home, as were their vehicles. The investigators immediately began a coordinated search for both individuals and their vehicles. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, they quickly located Brandon's pickup truck in the parking lot where he had left it, and inside they found a notebook and luggage, but there were no signs of Allison's Subaru Ascent or any indication of where she might be. As the search expanded, police requested assistance from multiple law enforcement agencies, including the Wixenberg Police Department, the Arizona Department of Public Safety, and the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. The multi-agency effort reflected the seriousness of the situation and the urgency with which authorities were treating Allison's disappearance. The collaboration between different jurisdictions would prove crucial in the eventual location of the suspect and victim. The search would eventually lead investigators to a remote area of Arizona, far from the suburban neighborhood where the Gregory family had made their home. At approximately 2:40 a.m. on May 15, 2025, authorities spotted Allison's Subaru Ascent parked near the Burrow Creek campground in Wickiup, Arizona, in Mojave County. The location was desolate, situated between the small communities of Wickiup and Nothing, Arizona, more than 100 miles from Surprise. The discovery confirmed the worst fears of her family members and marked the beginning of a criminal investigation that would reveal the full extent of the violence that had occurred in their Surprise home. Inside the vehicle, they found Brandon Gregory sitting with the lifeless body of his wife, Allison, in the back seat. The scene was deeply disturbing, even for seasoned law enforcement officers who had dealt with numerous violent crimes throughout their careers. Brandon Gregory was taken into custody without incident at the campground. The remote location, far from any populated areas, raised questions about his intentions and mental state in the hours following the murder. The fact that he remained with his wife's body rather than attempting to dispose of it or flee further suggested a complex psychological response to his actions. During his post-Miranda interview with investigators, Brandon Gregory confessed to killing his wife, providing a detailed account of the events that led to Allison's death. His confession was comprehensive and included specific details about both the murder and his subsequent attempts to conceal the crime. The voluntary nature of his confession, combined with the physical evidence, would provide prosecutors with a strong foundation for their case. Perhaps most chilling was the discovery of a handwritten letter found in the Subaru during the police search. Brandon Gregory had voluntarily written an apology letter to his children, requesting their forgiveness for his actions. This letter provided insight into his mental state following the murder and suggested that he understood the finality of what he had done and the impact it would have on his family. Brandon Gregory was subsequently booked into the Maricopa County Jail on multiple charges: second-degree murder, manslaughter, tampering with physical evidence, and concealment of a dead body. The combination of charges reflected both the violent nature of the crime and the elaborate attempts to conceal it from authorities. The multiple charges also provided prosecutors with various avenues for securing a conviction, even if some charges proved difficult to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. The case would move quickly through the court system, with Brandon's initial appearance scheduled for May 16, 2025, just 2 days after the murder. The speed of the proceedings reflected the strength of the evidence against him, including his own confession and the physical evidence discovered at both the crime scene and the location where he was apprehended. During his initial court appearance, Brandon Gregory remained silent as prosecutors and his victims' family members addressed the court. The hearing provided an opportunity for Allison's loved ones to speak directly to the judge about the impact of the crime and their fears about Brandon's potential release on bail. Allison's sister, Autumn Dobbins, delivered a powerful statement that captured the devastation felt by the entire family. "Brandon murdered our sister and devastated our family. He left 2 children motherless. He stole a beloved sister from 3 siblings and a daughter from loving parents. Our family is horrified by these actions and broken. We are completely devastated." The family statement continued with a desperate plea for justice. "We are left to figure out how to care for a 14-year-old girl and support a 20-year-old daughter through college. We will never be the same. We ask the court to please have denied bail because he took her life just as she was about to divorce him and start a fresh chapter. We ask you to please keep him locked away from our family and society." Allison's brother provided additional context about the troubled relationship, sharing how his sister had been struggling to separate from Brandon for an extended period. He lied and manipulated his way back into her life. She uncovered more.
Lies, lie after lie. The guy's entire life has been a lie. He's a manipulator and a murderer.
We ask that you deny any bond and don't ever let him out again. The most emotionally charged moment came when Allison's mother, Jan McCumbers, addressed both the court and Brandon directly. Her words, filled with grief and anger, captured the raw pain of a mother who had lost her daughter to violence. Allison struggled so hard to get away from him, and she was so close to it. He took her away from us. Please, please do not ever let him out again. It's horrible. My grandchildren, my children, it's so sickening. Jan's statement concluded with a direct address to her daughter's killer. He's such a coward. If he wanted to kill somebody, why didn't he kill himself? I'm sorry. I think that's it. Brandon, I hate you forever. I hope you never, ever, ever get out of prison. These powerful victim impact statements painted a clear picture of the devastating ripple effects of domestic violence. The family's words emphasized not only their immediate grief, but also their ongoing fears about Brandon's potential for future violence and their concerns about the safety of the community if he were to be released. The prosecution emphasized the brutal nature of the crime, with one prosecutor telling the court, "The brutality of this case is alarming, Your Honor." This statement reflected the shocking nature of the violence that had been inflicted upon Allison and the calculated manner in which Brandon had attempted to cover up his crime. The judge, recognizing the severity of the crime and the concerns raised by the victim's family, set Brandon Gregory's bond at $2 million cash only. This substantial amount reflected the court's assessment of both the flight risk posed by the defendant and the serious nature of the charges against him. The cash-only requirement ensured that Brandon would remain in custody unless he could produce the full amount in cash rather than using a bondsman. She remained steadfast in her belief that everyone deserved compassion and care, a belief that made her an exceptional surgical technician and a beloved member of her community. Her legacy lives on through the patients she helped, the colleagues she inspired, and the daughters she loved so deeply. Though her life was cut tragically short, the impact she made on those around her will not be forgotten. The trial was scheduled to begin on September 25, 2025, where Brandon Gregory would face the full weight of the justice system for the brutal murder of his wife, Allison Gregory.